Two of the greatest geniuses in psychology and personal development revealed the 7 deadly distractions that are stealing your dreams and destroying your potential. Napoleon Hill and Jung uncovered devastating patterns that keep millions trapped in mediocre lives. Deep secrets about the human mind will be revealed, and your perception of success will change forever in ways you could never imagine. A journey of self-discovery, transformation, and awakening. Get ready, because these revelations will revolutionize your life. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment which of these distractions impacts you the most. You wake up each morning with the same 24 hours that built empires and changed civilizations. Yet somehow by evening, you find yourself wondering where the day disappeared. What happened to those ambitious plans? Where did that burning motivation go? Why does it feel like you're running on a treadmill that never stops, never gets you anywhere meaningful? The answer lies in 7 silent thieves that have been quietly robbing you of your most precious resource, your focused attention. These aren't dramatic villains storming through your front door. They're subtle infiltrators, dressed as friends, disguised as necessities, masquerading as innocent choices. They slip into your consciousness so smoothly that you barely notice their presence until years have passed and you realize you've been living someone else's life. You've felt it, haven't you? That gnawing sensation that you're capable of so much more. That restless energy beneath your skin, whispering that your current reality is just a shadow of what you could create. Napoleon Hill called it definiteness of purpose. The burning desire that separates those who achieve from those who merely exist. Jung would have recognized it as your authentic self, crying out from beneath layers of collective conditioning and social expectations. But here's what most people never realize. The gap between who you are and who you could become isn't bridged by working harder or wanting more. It's bridged by recognizing and eliminating the distractions that fragment your power, scatter your energy, and dilute your potential until you become a pale reflection of your true capabilities. Think about the last time you felt truly alive, completely absorbed in something meaningful. How long did that feeling last before something pulled you away? A notification, a worry, an impulse to check, to scroll, to escape back into the comfortable numbness of distraction. Most people spend their entire lives in this scattered state, jumping from one shallow engagement to another, never diving deep enough to touch the bedrock of their capabilities. You're different. You sense there's something more. You feel the call to break free from the hypnotic rhythm of modern mediocrity. You understand that greatness isn't about accumulating more achievements, more possessions, more approval. It's about subtracting the unnecessary, eliminating the energy drains, and focusing your entire being on what truly matters. These 7 distractions aren't random obstacles, they're systematic patterns that modern society has woven into the fabric of daily life. They've become so normalized that questioning them feels almost rebellious. Yet every person who has ever achieved something extraordinary has had to confront and overcome these same fundamental patterns of mental slavery. The first distraction whispers that busyness equals importance. You know this one intimately. The addiction to being needed, to having a full calendar, to rushing from one commitment to another while never pausing to ask if any of it actually matters. You mistake motion for progress, activity for achievement, and exhaustion for evidence of a life well lived. The second distraction convinces you that other people's opinions define your worth. You find yourself constantly performing, adjusting your behavior based on invisible audiences, seeking validation from people whose judgment has no bearing on your true path. You become a chameleon, changing colors so often that you forget your original hue. The third distraction sells you the illusion that comfort equals safety. You stay in situations that drain your soul because they're familiar, predictable, manageable. You choose the known misery over the unknown possibility, trading your dreams for the false security of a life half-lived. The fourth distraction floods your mind with information masquerading as wisdom. You consume endless content, attend countless seminars, read dozens of books, and accumulate knowledge like a hoarder accumulates objects. Yet somehow, despite knowing so much, you feel less clear about what actually matters. The fifth distraction promises that happiness lies in the next achievement, the next purchase, the next milestone. You live in a constant state of when I have this or when I accomplish that, never fully present, never fully satisfied, always chasing a horizon that moves further away with each step forward. The sixth distraction convinces you that your past defines your future. You carry old wounds like sacred relics, replay past failures like broken records, and use yesterday's limitations to justify today's surrender. You become a prisoner of your own history, forgetting that every moment offers a chance to rewrite your story. The seventh distraction, the most subtle and dangerous of all, tells you that you are separate from the power that creates worlds. You believe you are small, insignificant, dependent on external circumstances for your happiness and success. You forget that within you lies the same creative force that moves mountains, changes seasons, and transforms seeds into forests. Each of these distractions operates like a skilled pickpocket, stealing from you while you're looking elsewhere. They don't announce themselves with dramatic fanfare. They simply redirect your attention away from your center, away from your purpose, away from the quiet voice within that knows exactly what you're meant to do. But here's what the masters understood. Those rare individuals who carved their names into history, not through luck or circumstance, but through the deliberate cultivation of focused power. They recognize that clarity comes not from adding more to your life, but from systematically removing everything that doesn't serve your highest vision. You stand at a crossroads. Behind you lies the familiar path of scattered attention, reactive, living and quiet desperation masked as normal life. Ahead lies the narrow road of intentional focus, deliberate choice, and the kind of deep satisfaction that comes from aligning your daily actions with your deepest values. Most people choose the wide, crowded path because it requires no courage, no self-examination, no willingness to be different. They drift with the current, adopting the goals that society approves, seeking the rewards that others chase, living the life that everyone expects. You have the power to choose differently. You have the capacity to step off the treadmill of endless distraction and into the laboratory of your own potential. You can learn to recognize these seven thieves not as mysterious forces beyond your control, but as predictable patterns that lose their power the moment you see them clearly. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to break free. The question is whether you're ready to face the temporary discomfort of withdrawal from the addictive patterns that have been numbing your true power. Are you prepared to sit with the silence that emerges when you stop filling every moment with noise? Can you handle the clarity that comes when you stop hiding behind busyness, other people's opinions, and the comfortable mythology of limitation? Your authentic self, that part of you that exists beyond social conditioning, beyond fear, beyond the need for constant validation, has been waiting patiently for this moment. It has watched you chase mirages in the desert of distraction. It has felt your frustration as you searched for meaning in empty activities. It has been ready all along to show you the way home to your own power. The seven distractions that waste your life are about to be exposed. Their methods will be revealed. Their weaknesses will be laid bare. But more importantly, you're about to discover the specific practices and mental frameworks that will restore your natural capacity for deep focus, unwavering purpose, and the kind of inner peace that makes external chaos irrelevant. This isn't about perfection. This isn't about becoming some superhuman version of yourself that never feels confused or uncertain. This is about reclaiming your birthright as a conscious creator of your own experience. This is about remembering that you are not a victim of circumstance, not a passenger on someone else's journey, not a supporting character in a story you never chose to be part of. Imagine a life where your attention flows like a laser beam toward what matters most. Imagine days that end with the deep satisfaction of meaningful progress, rather than the hollow exhaustion of empty activity. Imagine looking in the mirror and recognizing the person staring back at you, not the collection of roles and expectations you've accumulated, but the authentic being who has always lived beneath the surface, waiting for permission to emerge. What would change in your world if you could maintain unwavering focus on your true priorities? What would become possible if external opinions held no power over your inner peace? What dreams would resurface if you stopped using yesterday's failures to predict tomorrow's limitations? The journey begins with a single recognition. You are not your distractions. You are not your scattered thoughts, your reactive emotions, your habitual patterns of avoidance and escape. You are the conscious awareness that can observe these patterns, understand their mechanics, and choose a different response. 7 thieves have been stealing your life one moment at a time. Today you begin the process of catching them in the act. Tomorrow you start building the mental fortress that makes their theft impossible. But right now, in this moment, you take the first step toward reclaiming what has always belonged to you, the power to direct your own attention, choose your own responses, and create a life that reflects your deepest values rather than your unconscious fears. The path ahead isn't easy. It requires the courage to face uncomfortable truths about how you've been living. It demands the discipline to change patterns that feel as natural as breathing. It asks you to trust in possibilities that you can't yet see and believe in a version of yourself that doesn't yet exist. But consider the alternative. Consider what happens if you continue allowing these 7 distractions to dictate the rhythm of your days. Consider the weight of reaching the end of your life and realizing that you never truly lived it, that you spent your precious years reacting instead of creating, consuming instead of contributing, existing instead of becoming. The choice is yours. The power has always been yours. The only question remaining is, are you ready to use it? Look around you, really look. Watch the faces of people in coffee shops, on public transport, in waiting rooms. What do you see? Eyes glazed over, fingers scrolling endlessly, minds somewhere else entirely. They're physically present but mentally absent, caught in the hypnotic dance of modern distraction. They've become sleepwalkers in their own lives, moving through the motions while their consciousness drifts in digital clouds of irrelevance. You see it everywhere, don't you? The collective surrender to mediocrity disguised as normal living. People who once had dreams now settle for Netflix and notifications. Individuals who could have been artists, entrepreneurs, or innovators instead become professional consumers, feeding an endless appetite for content that leaves them spiritually malnourished. Watch how they react when their phone battery dies. Panic, anxiety, a desperate search for the nearest charging station as if they'd lost a vital organ. Watch how they fill every moment of silence with noise. Podcasts during walks, music during meals, videos during bathroom breaks. They've forgotten how to be alone with their own thoughts because their thoughts have become too uncomfortable to bear. This is what happens when people ignore the 7 thieves of attention. They don't suddenly collapse into obvious failure. They slowly erode, like statues weathered by decades of rain. Their edges become softer, their definition less clear, until they're barely recognizable as the vibrant beings they once were. Most people don't even realize they're trapped. They think they're making choices, but they're actually following scripts written by algorithms designed to harvest their attention. They believe they're staying informed, but they're drowning in information while starving for wisdom. They convince themselves they're connected, but they're more isolated than ever, surrounded by shallow interactions that never touch the core of who they are. You've seen the symptoms, the endless scrolling that leads nowhere, the busy calendars filled with meetings that accomplish nothing, the constant need for external validation through likes, shares, and comments, the inability to sit quietly for 10 minutes without reaching for a device, the feeling of being overwhelmed yet accomplishing little of real value. But perhaps the most tragic symptom is the gradual dimming of ambition. Dreams get pushed to someday, while urgent but unimportant tasks consume every available moment. Vision becomes clouded by the immediate demands of a life lived in reactive mode. Purpose gets buried under layers of other people's priorities until it becomes just a distant memory of what once felt possible. Let me tell you about Sarah, a brilliant marketing professional who seemed to have everything figured out. At 25, she had clear goals: start her own agency, travel the world, write a book about sustainable business practices. She was passionate, focused, and determined to make a meaningful impact. But then the distractions began their slow infiltration. It started innocently enough. Social media for networking, news apps to stay informed, professional development courses to stay competitive, productivity apps to get organized, self-help books to optimize performance. Each addition seemed logical, even beneficial. By 30, Sarah's calendar was a maze of obligations. Her phone buzzed with hundreds of notifications daily. She attended networking events 3 nights a week, consumed business podcasts during every commute, and scrolled through industry updates before bed. She was busier than ever, more informed than ever, more connected than ever. Yet something had died inside her. The agency remained an eventual goal. The book became a weekend project that weekends somehow never allowed. Travel happened only for work conferences in sterile hotel conference rooms. She had become incredibly efficient at activities that didn't matter while neglecting the work that could have transformed her life. Sarah fell victim to the first distraction, the cult of busyness. She confused motion with progress, scheduling with achieving, networking with building. She filled her time so completely with seemingly important activities that no space remained for the deep, focused work that creates actual value. She became addicted to feeling needed, important, involved, even when that involvement led nowhere meaningful. The second distraction reinforced her prison. Sarah became obsessed with her professional image, crafting the perfect LinkedIn presence, attending events to be seen, taking on projects based not on their value but on how they might be perceived by others. She stopped asking, "What do I want to create?" and started asking, "What will others think?" Her authentic voice was slowly replaced by an echo of what she thought people wanted to hear. The third distraction sealed her fate. As years passed and her original dreams began to feel more distant, Sarah convinced herself that her current situation was realistic. She told herself that everyone compromises, that dreams are for children, that security matters more than fulfillment. She chose the comfort of a predictable paycheck over the uncertainty of building something meaningful. By 35, Sarah was successful by conventional standards. She had a corner office, a respected position, a comfortable salary. She was the person others looked to for advice about making it in the corporate world. Yet late at night, when the notifications finally stopped and the office grew quiet, she felt a hollow ache that no amount of professional achievement could fill. The fourth distraction convinced her that the solution was more information. Sarah enrolled in advanced certifications, attended leadership seminars, read the latest business books. She accumulated knowledge like a dragon hoards gold, always believing that the next insight, the next framework, the next expert's advice would finally show her the way forward. But information without application is just intellectual hoarding, and knowing without doing is just sophisticated procrastination. The fifth distraction kept her on the treadmill. Sarah set new goals: the next promotion, the next salary increase, the next recognition award. She lived in a constant state of, "When I achieve this, then I'll pursue what really matters." But each achievement only revealed another mountain to climb, another milestone to reach. The horizon of enough kept moving further away, ensuring she never arrived at the destination where her real dreams waited. The sixth distraction haunted her with past failures. Sarah remembered the blog she started and abandoned, the side project that never launched, the business plan she wrote but never executed. These memories became evidence that she wasn't meant for entrepreneurship, that she didn't have what it takes to build something significant. Her past became a prison that locked away her future possibilities. The seventh and most insidious distraction convinced Sarah that she was powerless to change her circumstances. She believed that market forces, industry trends, and economic conditions determined her fate. She saw herself as a small cog in a vast machine, forgetting that every meaningful change in history began with one person deciding to think differently, act differently, and refuse to accept the limitations that others treated as permanent. Sarah's story isn't unique. It's being lived by millions of people who started with fire in their hearts and ended up with ash in their hands. They're not bad people. They're not lazy or stupid or lacking in potential. They're simply victims of a systematic theft, so subtle that they never noticed it happening. You see them everywhere. The artist who became an accountant and now paints only in their dreams. The entrepreneur who took a temporary corporate job 15 years ago and never left. The writer who became so busy reading about writing that they forgot to write. The IT innovator who got so caught up in industry best practices that they stopped thinking original thoughts. They've developed sophisticated justifications for their surrender. They talk about being realistic and having responsibilities. They cite market research and expert opinions. They explain why their original dreams were naive and their current compromise is mature. But beneath the rational explanations, you can still see the flicker of what they once wanted to become. The most heartbreaking part isn't their resignation to mediocrity. It's how they've learned to celebrate their chains. They post about their busy schedules as if exhaustion were an achievement. They share articles about work-life balance while working themselves into spiritual bankruptcy. They attend seminars about finding purpose while steadily drifting further from any authentic sense of direction. They've become missionaries for the very system that trapped them, convincing others that their scattered, reactive lifestyle is normal, healthy, even admirable. They've normalized the abnormal and made extraordinary dreams seem impractical or selfish. This is what happens to people who don't recognize the 7 distractions for what they are. Systematic programs designed to keep you small, scattered, and dependent on external sources for meaning and direction. These aren't random challenges that occasionally arise. They're persistent forces that require conscious resistance, deliberate countermeasures, and unwavering commitment to a different way of being. Most people never develop this resistance because they never see the distractions clearly. They're like fish trying to understand water, so immersed in the environment that they can't recognize its influence. They adapt to dysfunction until it feels normal, adjust to limitation until it feels like choice, accept distraction until it feels like life. But here's what they miss. Every person who has ever created something meaningful, built something lasting, or lived according to their own vision had to face these same 7 distractions. The difference wasn't talent, luck, or circumstances. The difference was recognition and resistance. The master artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators throughout history didn't have special immunity to distraction. They simply developed the ability to see clearly, choose consciously, and act with intentional focus despite the constant pull towards scattered living. You can see the patterns everywhere if you know what to look for. The successful entrepreneur who ignores industry conventions to follow their own vision. The artist who creates for the joy of creation rather than the approval of critics. The leader who makes decisions based on principles rather than popularity. The individual who builds their life around their values rather than other people's expectations. These aren't superhuman beings with extraordinary willpower. They're ordinary people who learn to recognize the 7 thieves of attention and developed specific practices to protect their mental territory. They understood that freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want. It's the ability to choose what you want, despite the constant pressure to want something else. The tragedy isn't that most people fail dramatically. The tragedy is that they succeed at goals that were never truly theirs, achieve milestones that bring no satisfaction, and arrive at destinations that feel empty upon arrival. They climb ladders leaning against the wrong walls, win games they never wanted to play, and optimize their lives for outcomes that don't actually matter to them. You've felt the pull, haven't you? The temptation to stop questioning, stop striving, stop believing that something more is possible. It would be so much easier to join the crowd, to accept the comfortable numbness of distracted living, to convince yourself that your current reality is enough, but something inside you refuses to settle. Something deeper than social conditioning, stronger than fear, more persistent than doubt keeps whispering that you're meant for more than this. That whisper isn't naive optimism or unrealistic fantasy. It's the voice of your authentic self, calling you back home to your own power. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to break free from the patterns that trap most people. The question is whether you're willing to face the discomfort of being different, thinking differently, and living according to principles that the crowd doesn't understand or approve. Most people choose the familiar pain of distracted living. over the unfamiliar challenge of focused creation. They prefer the known misery of scattered attention over the unknown possibility of concentrated power. They trade their authentic dreams for the false security of conventional success. What if you decided to make a different choice? What if you refused to let your life be determined by the same forces that have turned millions of once promising individuals into spiritual sleepwalkers? What if you chose to be the exception rather than the rule, the conscious creator rather than the unconscious consumer, the artist of your own existence rather than a passive audience to someone else's vision? The 7 distractions that have claimed so many brilliant minds are about to meet their match in you. But first, you need to see them clearly, understand their methods, and recognize how they've been operating in your own life. Only then can you begin the work of reclaiming your attention, redirecting your energy, and rebuilding your life around what actually matters to you. The crowd will always be there, dancing their hypnotic dance of distraction and mediocrity. But you're ready to step out of the formation and begin moving to the rhythm of your own authentic purpose, aren't you? The greatest minds in human history have all discovered the same fundamental truth. Your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world. Napoleon Hill called it the power of thought. Carl Jung described it as the relationship between the conscious and unconscious mind. Marcus Aurelius knew it as the discipline of perception. Viktor Frankl experienced it in the concentration camps, where he realized that external circumstances could never touch the one thing that remained eternally yours, the power to choose your response. Every master of human potential, from the ancient Stoics to modern neuroscientists, has recognized that your life experience is not determined by what happens to you, but by how you direct your attention in response to what happens to you. Your attention is your most valuable currency, more precious than time, more powerful than money, more influential than any external resource. Yet here's the paradox that traps most people. They guard their money carefully, protect their time jealously, but give away their attention freely to whoever asks for it. They wouldn't let strangers withdraw money from their bank accounts, but they allow random notifications to withdraw focus from their consciousness. They lock their homes at night, but leave their minds wide open to whatever thoughts and impulses happen to wander through. This is the fundamental error that creates a life of quiet desperation. When you surrender control of your attention, you surrender control of your experience. When you allow external forces to determine what you focus on, you allow external forces to determine who you become. The 7 distractions that waste your life are not mysterious forces beyond your control. They are predictable patterns that exploit your natural tendencies and turn them against you. Understanding this mechanism is the first step toward freedom. James Clear demonstrated how small changes in behavior create compound effects over time. The same principle applies to attention. Small, repeated surrenders of focus create compound effects of scattered consciousness. Conversely, small, repeated acts of intentional attention create compound effects of concentrated power. Think of your mind as a river. In its natural state, a river flows with tremendous force toward its destination. But if you dam that river in 7 different places, diverting its water into multiple channels, what happens? The once powerful current becomes weak trickles that lack the force to carve new landscapes or power meaningful change. Your scattered attention is like that divided river, still the same total amount of water, but without the concentrated force necessary to create something significant. The ancient Stoics understood this principle intimately. Epictetus taught that you cannot control external events, but you can always control your judgments about those events. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal about the daily practice of directing his attention away from what he could not control and toward what he could influence. Seneca warned against the theft of time through scattered pursuits and urged focus on what he called the essential. These weren't philosophical abstractions. These were practical frameworks for maintaining mental sovereignty in a world designed to steal it. The Stoics lived in times of political upheaval, war, and uncertainty, yet they developed inner stability that made them immune to external chaos. They achieved this not through special circumstances or supernatural abilities, but through the disciplined cultivation of attention. Carl Jung added a crucial dimension to this understanding when he explored the unconscious patterns that drive human behavior. He showed that most people are not actually choosing their responses to life. They are unconsciously repeating inherited patterns, cultural conditioning, and psychological programs that run automatically beneath their awareness. The 7 distractions that waste your life operate primarily at this unconscious level, which is why they're so difficult to recognize and resist. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming conscious of unconscious patterns and choosing to live according to your authentic nature, rather than inherited programming. This isn't self-improvement in the superficial sense of acquiring new habits or techniques. This is psychological archaeology, excavating the automated responses that have been running your life and replacing them with conscious choices aligned with your deepest values. Viktor Frankl's experiences in Nazi concentration camps provided perhaps the most extreme test of these principles. Stripped of everything external, freedom, possessions, even basic human dignity, he discovered what he called the last of human freedoms. The ability to choose your attitude toward any circumstances. Even in conditions of unimaginable suffering, Frankl found that those who maintained their inner freedom through conscious choice of focus were more likely to survive and ultimately thrive. Frankl observed that prisoners who focused on future, meaning on serving something greater than themselves, on maintaining their human dignity despite dehumanizing conditions, retained a core of strength that external circumstances could not touch. Those who surrendered their inner freedom to despair, to the immediate circumstances, to the opinions and actions of their captors, lost something essential that made survival much more difficult. This isn't about comparing your challenges to extreme suffering. This is about recognizing the universal principle. Your inner state determines your experience of reality more than your external circumstances do. The 7 distractions that waste your life are sophisticated programs designed to convince you that your inner state is determined by external conditions, that you must react to circumstances rather than respond from a place of centered choice. Napoleon Hill spent decades studying the mindset patterns of highly successful individuals and discovered what he called definiteness of purpose. He found that people who achieved extraordinary results shared one common characteristic. They maintained unwavering focus on their primary objective, despite countless distractions, setbacks, and opportunities to pursue other goals. Hill observed that most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they scatter their efforts across too many objectives. They want success in general, rather than a specific outcome. They chase opportunities instead of creating them. They react to market conditions instead of staying committed to their core vision. They become what Hill called drifters, people who allow circumstances to direct their lives rather than using their lives to direct circumstances. The modern manifestation of Hill's principle is even more challenging because distractions have become more sophisticated, more frequent, and more socially acceptable. You're not just dealing with the occasional temptation to drift from your purpose. You're swimming against a current of engineered distraction designed by teams of psychologists, data scientists, and behavioral economists whose job is to capture and monetize your attention. Every notification is a bid for your focus. Every headline is competing for your mental energy. Every social media platform is optimized to keep you scrolling, clicking, engaging with content that generates revenue for others while depleting your capacity for deep work, original thinking, and meaningful creation. This is why ancient wisdom is more relevant than ever. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but they had the Roman Forum, a constant stream of political drama, social gossip, and commercial temptations. They didn't have social media, but they had the gladiatorial games, designed to capture attention and channel it toward spectacle rather than substance. They didn't have 24-hour news cycles, but they had military campaigns, political upheavals, and economic uncertainties that could easily justify constant worry and reaction. The specific tools of distraction change with each generation, but the underlying dynamics remain constant. There will always be forces that profit from your scattered attention. There will always be emergencies that seem to require immediate reaction. There will always be social pressures to conform to the crowd's definition of normal, important, and worthwhile. The question is not whether these forces will exist. They always have and always will. The question is whether you will develop the inner authority necessary to choose your own response, rather than being unconsciously programmed by external influences. This inner authority is what separates masters from amateurs in any field. The master sculptor sees the statue within the marble and systematically removes everything that doesn't belong, ignoring the countless other shapes that could be carved from the same block. The master musician practices scales for hours, resisting the temptation to play only the songs that are easy or immediately rewarding. The master entrepreneur stays focused on building long-term value, refusing to be distracted by short-term opportunities that don't align with their core vision. Mastery in any domain requires what psychologists call selective attention, the ability to focus on what serves your goals while filtering out everything else. But selective attention is not a natural human ability. It must be developed through conscious practice, deliberate training, and constant vigilance against the forces that seek to fragment your focus. Here's the crucial insight that most people miss. The 7 distractions that waste your life are not external problems that require external solutions. They are internal patterns that require internal transformation. You cannot eliminate distraction by changing your environment, downloading new apps, or implementing new systems. You can only eliminate distraction by changing your relationship to your own mind. This is why willpower strategies ultimately fail. Willpower is a finite resource that gets depleted through use. If you try to resist distraction through sheer force of will, you'll eventually exhaust yourself and surrender to the very patterns you were trying to escape. Instead, you need what the martial arts call soft power, the ability to redirect energy rather than opposing it directly. When you understand the mechanics of distraction, you can design your life to make focus the path of least resistance. When you recognize the unconscious patterns that pull you toward scattered living, you can create new patterns that pull you toward concentrated purpose. When you see clearly how external forces profit from your fragmented attention, you can choose to invest that attention in your own vision instead. The river of your consciousness wants to flow toward meaningful creation. Its natural tendency is toward focus, growth, and expression. The 7 distractions are artificial dams that redirect this natural flow into channels that serve others' purposes rather than your own. Remove the dams, and the river returns to its natural course. But removing these dams requires more than intellectual understanding. It requires what Jung called active imagination, the ability to consciously engage with unconscious patterns and transform them from the inside out. It requires what the Stoics called prososh, the continuous attention to one's own thoughts and reactions. It requires what Hill called auto-suggestion, the deliberate programming of your subconscious mind with thoughts and images aligned with your definite major purpose. This is not positive thinking or wishful manifestation. This is the practical application of psychological principles that have been tested and proven across cultures, centuries, and circumstances. This is the systematic cultivation of mental habits that support your highest aspirations rather than undermining them. The 7 thieves of attention have been operating in darkness, stealing from you while you were looking elsewhere. Now you're about to turn on the lights. You're about to see their methods, understand their weaknesses, and develop the specific skills necessary to protect your mental territory from their influence. This is not about perfection. This is not about becoming immune to all distraction or achieving some superhuman level of focus. This is about tipping the balance of power in your favor. This is about spending more of your attention on what matters most to you and less of it on what matters most to others who have no interest in your actual well-being. The architecture of mastery is built one conscious choice at a time. Each moment, you choose focus over distraction, depth over shallowness, creation over consumption. You add another stone to the foundation of a life that reflects your authentic values rather than borrowed expectations. The river of your attention is about to be unleashed. The concentrated force of your focused consciousness is about to be directed toward outcomes that serve your highest vision. But first, you need the practical tools, the daily practices, and the specific techniques that will make this transformation not just possible but inevitable. If scattered attention creates scattered results, then concentrated attention creates concentrated results. If unconscious living produces unconscious outcomes, then conscious living produces conscious outcomes. The logic is simple, elegant, and absolutely reliable. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to apply this logic to your own life, starting today, starting now, starting with the next choice you make about where to direct your precious, powerful, irreplaceable attention. Now comes the moment when philosophy transforms into practice. Understanding the 7 distractions is only the beginning. You must build daily defenses against their influence, create systematic responses to their attacks, and develop the mental muscles necessary to maintain your focus despite the constant assault on your attention. This is where most people falter. They read about focus, think about priorities, talk about intention, but never develop the specific habits that make concentrated living automatic. They remain vulnerable to the same patterns that have been fragmenting their power for years because they never bridge the gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it consistently. The fortress of your focused life must be built one stone at a time, one choice at a time, one conscious response at a time. Here are the 5 daily practices that will transform your relationship with distraction and restore your natural capacity for deep, sustained attention on what matters most. Practice. The morning sanctuary ritual begin each day by creating a sacred space of silence before the world demands your attention. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than necessary and use this time for what warriors call sharpening the sword, preparing your mind for the battles ahead. Start with 5 minutes of complete silence. Not meditation with apps or guided imagery, but pure silence where you simply observe your own thoughts without judgment or manipulation. This isn't about emptying your mind. It's about witnessing what fills it when you're not trying to control the contents. Notice how quickly your mind wants to escape into planning, worrying, or remembering. Notice how uncomfortable pure presence feels when you're accustomed to constant stimulation. Notice the subtle anxiety that arises when you're not consuming information, checking updates, or preparing for the next task. This discomfort is your addiction to distraction revealing itself. Like any addiction, it will fight against your attempts to break free. Your mind will generate urgent thoughts about emails you must check, tasks you must plan, problems you must solve. Recognize these thoughts as withdrawal symptoms from your dependence on external stimulation. After the silence, spend 10 minutes visualizing your ideal day with crystal clarity. See yourself moving through your hours with intentional focus, saying no to distractions, staying centered when others try to pull you into their urgency. Feel the satisfaction of ending the day knowing you invested your attention in what truly matters. This isn't fantasy or wishful thinking. This is mental rehearsal, the same technique used by Olympic athletes, elite performers, and master craftspeople. When you visualize specific responses to predictable challenges, you're programming your subconscious mind to execute those responses automatically when the situations arise. Imagine your phone buzzing with a non-urgent notification while you're working on something important. See yourself letting it buzz without checking, maintaining your focus on the task at hand. Imagine a colleague interrupting you with gossip or complaints. See yourself politely redirecting the conversation or excusing yourself to return to your priorities. Imagine criticism coming your way for being too focused or not available enough. See yourself receiving this feedback without defensiveness or the need to justify your choices. You understand that people who live scattered lives often feel threatened by those who choose concentrated living. End your morning sanctuary with 15 minutes dedicated to your most important creative work, writing, planning, designing, or thinking about your primary objective. Not administrative tasks or reactive responses, but generative work that moves you toward your definite major purpose. This morning practice creates what psychologists call cognitive momentum. When you begin the day with intentional focus, you're more likely to maintain that focus throughout the hours that follow. When you start by choosing your own priorities before responding to others' demands, You establish yourself as the author of your day rather than a character in someone else's story. Master the interruption protocol. Every distraction begins as an interruption, a break in your focused attention caused by external triggers or internal impulses. Most people have no systematic way of handling interruptions, so they simply react to whatever pulls at their consciousness. This reactive pattern trains your mind to be constantly available to anything that seems urgent, important, or interesting. Develop a standardized response to all interruptions. Pause, breathe, evaluate, choose. When your phone makes a sound, when someone wants to quickly discuss something, when your mind generates an urge to check social media or search for information unrelated to your current task, stop. Take a conscious breath. Ask yourself, does this interruption serve my highest priorities, or is it a distraction disguised as importance? Most interruptions fail this simple test: the urgent email that can wait an hour, the important conversation that could happen later, the necessary research that's actually procrastination in disguise, the quick social media check that turns into 30 minutes of meaningless scrolling. When you pause before responding to interruptions, you reclaim your power of choice. Instead of being pulled automatically into reactive mode, you maintain your position as the conscious director of your own attention. Practice saying, "I'm focused on something important right now. Can we connect about this at specific time?" Notice how uncomfortable this feels initially. You've been conditioned to believe that availability equals kindness, that immediate response equals professionalism, that constant accessibility equals importance. These beliefs are sophisticated traps, the most productive, creative, and successful. People are often the least immediately available because they protect their deep work time like a sacred resource. They understand that their greatest contribution comes from sustained focus, not scattered availability. When dealing with your own internal interruptions, the sudden urge to check something, research something, or pursue an interesting tangent, write it down instead of acting on it immediately. Keep a parking lot list where you capture these impulses for later evaluation. Most of these internal distractions lose their urgency when you write them down and return to them later. They were simply your mind's attempt to escape from the sustained effort that meaningful work requires. By acknowledging them without immediately acting on them, you maintain your focus while ensuring that genuinely important ideas aren't lost. Build unbreachable focus. Schedule specific periods each day when you are completely unavailable for anything except your most important work. Start with 2-hour blocks and gradually extend them as your capacity for sustained attention increases. During these focus blocks, your phone is in another room or completely powered off. Your email is closed, your door is shut. You have informed others that you are not available except for genuine emergencies. You have eliminated every possible external trigger that could fragment your attention. But external elimination is only half the battle. You must also prepare for the internal resistance that will arise when you attempt sustained focus. Your mind will generate seemingly urgent thoughts, creative excuses to break your concentration, and subtle forms of mental rebellion against the discipline you're imposing. When these internal distractions arise, use what concentration experts call the noting technique. Simply observe the distraction and say to yourself, thinking about email or wanting to check news or feeling restless, then gently return your attention to your chosen task. Don't judge these mental interruptions or fight against them aggressively. Simply notice them as natural phenomena and redirect your focus with the same patience you would show a friend who keeps getting distracted during a conversation. During your focus blocks, work on your most challenging, creative, or important tasks. These are the activities that require what psychologists call flow state, the condition of complete absorption where time seems to disappear and your capabilities expand beyond their normal limits. You cannot access flow state while multitasking, checking notifications, or allowing random interruptions. Flow requires sustained, undivided attention on a single challenging activity. The more you practice creating these conditions, the more easily you can access this state of optimal performance. Many People never experience true flow because they never create the conditions necessary for it to emerge. They mistake busy activity for productive work, confuse multitasking for efficiency, and believe that constant availability makes them valuable rather than scattered. Develop relationship boundaries. One of the most difficult aspects of focused living is managing relationships with people who operate from scattered consciousness. They will unconsciously try to pull you into their urgency, their drama, their reactive patterns. They may interpret your focused behavior as rejection, your boundaries as selfishness, your priorities as arrogance. Learn to distinguish between people who support your growth and people who drain your energy. Energy supporters understand when you need to focus, respect your boundaries, and celebrate your progress toward meaningful goals. Energy drains demand constant availability, create artificial urgency, and make you feel guilty for having priorities other than their immediate needs. Practice phrases that maintain relationships while protecting your focus. I value our connection and want to give you my full attention. Can we schedule time to talk when I can be completely present? Or, I'm in a deep work period right now. I'll reach out to you at specific time when I can. Engage fully. Notice how people respond to your boundaries. Those who respect your focused approach to life will adapt and may even be inspired to develop better boundaries themselves. Those who resist your boundaries or try to make you feel guilty for having them are revealing their own dependency on scattered living. You may lose some relationships as you become more intentional about how you spend your time and attention. This is not a failure, it's a natural result of conscious evolution. As you grow into a more focused version of yourself, you naturally attract people who operate at similar levels of intentionality while moving away from those who remain stuck in reactive patterns. Don't try to convince others to adopt your approach. Simply model focused living and let your results speak for themselves. When people see the quality of work you produce, the peace you maintain during stressful situations, and the progress you make toward meaningful goals, some will naturally become curious about your methods. Create evening completion rituals, end each day with a conscious review that transforms experiences into wisdom and prepares your mind for restorative rest. Most people carry the day's unfinished business, unresolved tensions and accumulated stress into their sleep, which diminishes both the quality of their rest and their capacity for focus the following day. Spend 10 minutes writing down 3 specific victories from the day, moments when you chose focus over distraction, depth over shallowness, conscious response over automatic reaction. These don't need to be dramatic achievements. They can be simple moments, choosing to complete a task before checking email, maintaining your composure during a stressful conversation, or saying no to a request that didn't align with your priorities. By consciously acknowledging these victories, you're training your brain to notice and repeat the patterns that serve your highest vision. What you pay attention to grows stronger. When you focus on evidence of your growing capacity for intentional living, you reinforce the neural pathways that support that capacity. Next, identify 1 or 2 areas where distraction got the better of you during the day. Instead of judging these moments harshly, treat them as data about your current patterns and opportunities for growth. Ask yourself, what triggered this distraction? What was I feeling or thinking just before I lost focus? What could I do differently in a similar situation tomorrow? This isn't self-criticism, it's conscious learning. Every master craftsperson studies their mistakes to understand how to avoid repeating them. Your relationship with distraction is a craft that improves through conscious practice and honest self-assessment. Finally, choose one specific focus for tomorrow's deep work. Be precise about what you want to accomplish, when you'll work on it, and how you'll protect that time from interruption. This mental preparation primes your subconscious to work on the challenge while you sleep, and helps you begin the following day with clear intention rather than reactive scrambling. Write this intention down and place it where you'll see it first thing in the morning. Let it be the first information that enters your consciousness, setting the tone for another day of intentional focus rather than scattered reaction. These 5 practices form the foundation of a life lived from the center rather than the periphery. They require initial effort and ongoing discipline, but they create compound benefits that far exceed the energy invested in maintaining them. Each practice strengthens your capacity to choose your response rather than reacting automatically. Each builds your tolerance for the discomfort that always accompanies growth. Each develops your ability to stay centered when external circumstances become chaotic or demanding. Most importantly, these practices restore your sense of agency, your recognition that you are the author of your own experience, rather than a victim of circumstances beyond your control. As this sense of agency strengthens, you naturally become more selective about where you invest your attention, more protective of your mental energy, and more committed to living according to your authentic values rather than borrowed expectations. The 7 distractions that have been stealing your life lose their power when faced with these systematic practices. They can only operate in darkness, through unconscious habits, via automatic reactions. When you bring conscious choice to your daily patterns, you illuminate their methods and eliminate their influence. Tomorrow, you begin building your fortress. One practice at a time, one choice at a time, one conscious response at a time. The materials are simple, but the structure will transform your life. Deep within your consciousness lives a collection of images that hold more power than 1,000 strategies, more wisdom than countless techniques, more strength than any external motivation. These are the archetypal symbols that speak directly to your soul, bypassing rational thought to touch something primal and eternal within you. When you align your daily choices with these living metaphors, something profound shifts. You stop trying to remember what to do and start becoming who you are. The practices transform from external disciplines into natural expressions of your authentic identity. The resistance melts away because you're no longer fighting against your nature. You're finally living in harmony with it. The river that knows its course picture. A river flowing through varied landscapes. Sometimes it moves through peaceful meadows where the water runs clear and gentle. Sometimes it encounters rocky terrain where it must navigate obstacles with patience and persistence. Sometimes it faces steep cliffs where it must transform into a waterfall, surrendering completely to gravity while maintaining its essential nature. But through every landscape, every challenge, every transformation, the river never forgets its fundamental purpose, to flow toward its ultimate destination. It doesn't stop to argue with the rocks that try to block its path. It doesn't waste energy fighting gravity or questioning its direction. It simply flows, always flows, using whatever conditions it encounters as opportunities to express its essential nature more fully. You are that river. Your consciousness is the water, your purpose is the destination, and your daily choices determine whether you flow with power and clarity or scatter your energy into stagnant pools of distraction. When distractions arise, and they always will, remember the river's wisdom. Don't fight against the obstacles or waste energy complaining about the landscape. Instead, ask, how can I use this situation to flow more powerfully toward my destination? The urgent email that interrupts your deep work becomes an opportunity to practice the art of delayed response, strengthening your ability to choose when and how you engage with external demands. The criticism from others about your focused approach becomes a chance to deepen your commitment to your own path, rather than seeking approval from those who don't share your vision. The temptation to check social media during your creative work becomes a moment to feel the current of your authentic purpose and choose to flow in that direction, rather than being pulled into the shallow eddies of meaningless content. Like a river, you develop power through consistent movement in a single direction. Every choice to maintain your course, every decision to flow around obstacles rather than being stopped by them, every moment of staying true to your essential nature adds to your momentum. Watch how a river responds to drought. It doesn't panic or fight against the reduced water supply. It simply becomes more concentrated, more purposeful, flowing deeper into its channel. When distractions try to drain your energy and fragment your attention, remember this wisdom. Become more concentrated, not more scattered. Go deeper, not wider. Observe how a river handles abundance. When spring rains swell its banks, it doesn't become confused about its direction or try to flow backward. It maintains its course while expressing its power more fully. When opportunities and options multiply in your life, remember this teaching. Stay true to your primary direction while allowing your expanded capacity to serve your ultimate purpose more powerfully. The river never questions whether it deserves to reach the ocean. It never wonders if it's good enough, smart enough, or qualified enough to fulfill its purpose. It simply flows day after day, season after season, year after year with unwavering faith in its essential nature and ultimate destination. This is your deeper identity beneath all the roles, expectations, and social conditioning. You are a force of nature designed to flow toward your highest expression. The 7 distractions are like debris floating on the surface, noticeable but incapable of changing your fundamental direction unless you allow them to. The lighthouse that stands, unwavering, on a rocky promontory overlooking a turbulent sea, stands a lighthouse. Built to withstand the most violent storms, its foundation reaches deep into the bedrock while its beacon cuts through the darkest nights. Ships in distress navigate by its light, finding safety in its unwavering presence. Tsipo. Lighthouse doesn't chase after ships that ignore its signal. It doesn't move closer to vessels that seem to need help. It doesn't dim its light when storms rage or brighten it when skies are clear. It simply maintains its position and continues its purpose, to be a reliable source of guidance for those who need direction. You are that lighthouse. Your consciousness is the beacon, your values are the foundation, and your daily practices are the maintenance that keeps your light shining clearly through any conditions. When others criticize your focused lifestyle, questioning why you're not more available, more flexible, more willing to go with the flow of their scattered urgency, remember the lighthouse's wisdom. Your value comes not from bending to every wind of opinion, but from maintaining a steady source of clarity in a world full of confusion. The lighthouse doesn't apologize for being unmovable. It doesn't try to please the storm by swaying with the wind. It knows that its greatest gift to the world is its stability, its reliability, its refusal to be shaken from its purpose by temporary turbulence. Some people will be attracted to your centered approach to life. They'll appreciate your clarity, your reliability, your ability to remain calm when everyone else is reactive. These are the ships that need your beacon, the individuals who are seeking a different way of living and are inspired by your example. Others will be frustrated by your unwillingness to join their drama, participate in their urgency, or abandon your priorities to handle their latest crisis. They want you to be a boat that can be pushed around by every wave, rather than a lighthouse that provides stable guidance. Don't take their frustration personally. Ships that prefer to navigate by following other ships rather than following fixed beacons often find themselves lost in fog or run aground on hidden rocks. Your commitment to being a lighthouse, rather than another drifting vessel, might trigger their own awareness of how scattered their navigation has become. The lighthouse tends its light with daily consistency. It checks the lens for clarity, maintains the fuel supply, and repairs any damage caused by storms. These aren't dramatic activities, but they're essential for fulfilling its purpose. Your daily practices serve the same function. The morning ritual that clarifies your priorities, the evening review that transforms experience into wisdom, the boundaries that protect your deep work time. These are the maintenance activities that keep your inner beacon shining brightly. Sometimes, the light seems dim, especially during your own internal storms when doubt, fear, or confusion cloud your clarity. During these times, remember that the lighthouse keeper's job is not to judge the quality of the light, but to maintain the practices that keep it burning. Continue your rituals, maintain your boundaries, and trust that clarity will return as the storm passes. The lighthouse never wavers in its fundamental purpose, but it adapts its intensity to serve those who need guidance. On clear nights, it maintains a steady glow. During storms, it might flash more urgently or use different signals to cut through the chaos. Your expression of focused living will naturally adapt to different circumstances while maintaining its essential consistency. The archer's perfect patience. In a quiet forest clearing stands an archer, bow drawn, arrow nocked, completely motionless, except for the gentle rise and fall of controlled breathing. The target is distant, partially obscured by branches, challenging but achievable. Everything in the archer's awareness, has been distilled to this single moment of perfect preparation. The archer doesn't rush the shot. Years of training have taught the wisdom of patience, the importance of alignment, the power that comes from complete stillness before action. The arrow will be released at exactly the right moment, not too early in eagerness, not too late in hesitation, but in that perfect instant when breath, focus, and intention unite. You are that archer. Your consciousness is the bow, your attention is the arrow, and your definite major purpose is the target. Every distraction is like wind that could blow your shot off course. Every interruption is like a sound that could break your concentration. Every doubt is like a tremor that could disturb your aim. The master archer knows that hitting the target consistently requires more than good intentions or natural talent. It requires the cultivation of what martial artists call fudoshin, the immovable mind that remains centered regardless of external conditions. When you practice focused living, you're developing this same quality of consciousness. You're training your mind to maintain its aim on what matters most, regardless of the winds of distraction that swirl around you. Watch how the archer handles distractions during practice. A bird might call from a nearby tree, another archer might be talking, or thoughts about tomorrow's responsibilities might arise. The skilled archer doesn't fight against these distractions or become frustrated by their presence. Instead, there's a gentle acknowledgement followed by a return to the target. This is the same skill you're developing with your daily practices. When your phone buzzes during deep work, when your mind generates urgent thoughts about tasks that aren't immediately important, when others try to pull you into their reactive patterns, you practice the archer's response. Acknowledge without engaging, then return your focus to your chosen target. The archer understands that each shot is both an end in itself and preparation for the next shot. There's no frustration when an arrow misses the bullseye, no ego inflation when it hits the center. Each shot provides information about alignment, technique, and focus that improves the next attempt. Apply this wisdom to your daily choices about attention and distraction. Each moment you choose focus over scattering, each time you maintain your priorities despite external pressure, each instance of staying centered when others are reactive. These are all arrows released toward your target. Some will hit closer to the center than others, but each one teaches you something about your current level of skill and what needs refinement. The archer never shoots angry arrows. Frustration, impatience, and emotional reactivity all disturb the stillness necessary for accurate aim. When you notice yourself becoming frustrated with your progress, impatient with the pace of change, or emotionally reactive to distractions, remember this principle. Return to stillness. Return to breath. Return to the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're developing a skill that will serve you for life. Your capacity for focused living isn't built through force or emotional intensity, but through patient, consistent practice that gradually becomes as natural as breathing. The archer practices in all weather conditions, sunny days that make shooting pleasant, windy days that challenge concentration, rainy days that test commitment. The goal isn't to shoot only when conditions are perfect, but to develop the skill to hit the target regardless of circumstances. You're developing the same resilience in your relationship with focus and distraction. Some days your mind will feel clear and concentration will come easily. Other days will bring mental fog, emotional turbulence, or external chaos that makes sustained attention feel almost impossible. These challenging days aren't obstacles to your development. They're opportunities to strengthen your capacity for conscious choice under pressure. The archer who can hit the target during a windstorm has developed a level of skill that fair weather archers never achieve. The most profound aspect of the archer's practice is the moment between drawing the bow and releasing the arrow. In that space of perfect preparation, there's no doubt, no second guessing, no mental commentary about technique or outcome. There's only pure presence, complete alignment, and total commitment to the shot. This is the state of consciousness you're cultivating through your focused living practices. It's the ability to be completely present with your chosen activity, fully aligned with your deepest values, and totally committed to expressing your highest vision through your daily choices. In this space, there are no distractions because nothing exists except the perfect unity of archer, bow, arrow, and target. There is no scattered attention because everything has been gathered into a single point of focused power. There is no reactive living because every action emerges from the stillness of conscious choice. These three metaphors, the river, the lighthouse, and the archer, live within your consciousness as more than intellectual concepts. They are aspects of your true nature that have been temporarily obscured by the habits of scattered living but never eliminated. When you align your daily choices with these deeper patterns, you stop fighting against distraction and start flowing toward focus. You stop apologizing for your commitment to meaningful work and start serving as a beacon for others who seek a different way. You stop rushing toward mediocre results and start developing the patience that creates mastery. The 7 distractions lose their power when faced with these archetypal forces. They can tempt the surface of your mind, but they cannot touch the river's knowledge of its course, the lighthouse's commitment to its purpose, or the archer's perfect patience in the moment before release. You are all 3, the flowing force that adapts to any landscape while maintaining its direction, the unwavering beacon that provides guidance through any storm, and the centered awareness